Hi, how are you doing? Welcome to Youth Split. This is Pefasio Kimau Youth Online. I am your host, Sharon Jogo, and today I'm honored again to have my friend Amos with me, and it's a continuation of the first week. This is a part 2 of good stewardship of the new series that we started, Youth and Money. And before I continue, let Amos say hi.
Hi.
Anything?
Thank you for having me again.
Okay, you're welcome. Today is a build-up of where we left from, and you started. You said that we are starting to get to the goal. We have to have this big picture, and I thought of it as fantasy and the importance of fantasy to realize our goals. And I want us to break it down from the top of the a goal where you want to be in future to right now, and for you to realize that you have to visualize that, and visualizing to some extent is fantasy. What do you think about that? From break it down, we started from the big picture of I want to have to take my kids this and this school. I want to do this and this in future. I want maybe to retire early. And then how do I start? Fantasy, there is, you see it, you visualize it, you see it, then you start living it. How do you go about that?
So yeah, that's a very good point where you're saying you need first to build some castles in the air, and it's one of the building blocks or foundation stones of so moving out of poverty into the next stages and whatnot. So for you to succeed, you have to be very naive, because very few people succeed on a total perspective. So you have to make yourself hugely unaware of all the challenges. So you have to first fantasize a lot. Then after you fantasize, it now crystallizes, it becomes more of like a vision. Then from a vision, you want to move from the vision to goal setting. Then you want to move from goal setting, where it's the end product, to stages where you'd say in 10 years, then in 5 years, then you go all the way up to very few people will be able to get up to a daily perspective, but that's what you're aiming for. So ultimately, you want to get even to as low as even each hour. What does this hour help me to get to that goal?
That's the value of time. And you have to have a drive then, because you can fantasize, but still you see it, but you're doing nothing. I think you have to have that fantasy and then look from where you're coming from for you to start doing the thing.
So in terms of motivation, the most reason why people don't do much is because the motivation is just not right. So you think that you're highly motivated, but you find yourself you're not actually doing what you'd like to do. That means you're not motivated as such, which then goes as far as to mean the source of motivation is not right. So then truthfully, you need to, what you believe in, do not ask yourself what you believe in. Look into how you're acting, and then from that deduce what you actually believe in. If you're not working as hard, if you're not trying to reach those goals, it means that then those goals don't really matter as much to you.
There is these, you have to get tired of, I think, being where you are to see, so that you can start planning of where you want to go.
For you to get tired means you have to first get yourself into positions where, in environments where you're exposed to more, exposed to different. So you wouldn't know that the Kenyan economy is bad unless you actually went and looked at other people's economies. You wouldn't know that maybe the relationship with your parents is not good enough until you actually are exposed to people with better relationship with their parents. You wouldn't know that you're poor unless, example, we stayed before colonization, we stayed for a very long time. Some of us were even naked and whatnot, and we didn't know there was better until we saw a white guy pull up and he was all dressed.
That's true. And it's there is the drive now. You have to start seeing it and doing it. And there is this concern of being like the only one. Let's say I come from a place where it's like I'm totally disadvantaged. Then I'm alone in seeing something. There is this fear of loyalty that I'm letting my people somehow, because I think the rich belong there, then there is we here.
So if I'm getting what you're asking, so let me just start by saying that you can't look at money just by itself, and you can't look at wealth just by itself. You have to look at it because you are a series of variables which all connect, and then you get a result, a matrix per se. So there are two ways we do things, which is usually system 1 and system 2, let's call it that. So system 1 is usually the emotional side of things. Then there is system 2, which is usually the logical side of things. So apparently what happens is that the end result is usually done by system 2, which is usually the conscious side of things. And then subconscious is the emotional side, which usually happens really quick, really fast, very reactive. Then the logical subconscious side is usually slower and more deliberate. So very few times does system 2 actually control anything. System 1 is the one that gets there first, and then it feeds system 2 the information, and with that quick response, system 2 does what system 1 has told it.
Right.
So you need to get to a point where you bridge the gap in terms of you try and solve system 1 problems. Because if you're trying to solve system 2 and it is giving you about 5% of the results, then the bigger problem is with the emotional side of things. So you need to get your emotional side of things right. So get that motivation, try and get the emotional perspective of that goal that you're trying to do and make it right with your emotional standpoint. Example, let's say you're coming from a place that is, you're more disadvantaged than others. So you've just gotten a job. So there are two things. You either want to buy fresher clothes so that you could meet the caliber of the people around you, or you need to take this money home, or you need to save. So there's recurrent expenditure for yourself, for the family, and there's the investment expenditure, but you have a very little amount of cash. So if you don't look at it really right, you're going to end up making some mistake, or it's going to be really difficult on what to do. So this is where you, example me, I know for a fact that it will really affect me if, let's say, I'm coming from not a very disadvantaged place, and maybe my parents are really struggling, and I'm trying to maybe save this money to invest, and at the current position we're having a problem. So this is where you could go. This is just a simple solution. I think you could have that conversation with your parents and take it really deep down and ask them, so this is what I'm trying to do, and this is the vision that I'm having. So what does this mean for us? Could I give you this amount of money and invest this other? Because then I will, deep down within me, I'll be peaceful enough to know that the people that I'm with, we are cooperating and they understand what I'm doing, and then they would also be able to push me past that whole emotional barrier that I'd be having. Right. So you have to look deep down within you and find out what's that emotional thing that and what's that effect that would have on your emotion, and then try and fix it in whatever way that, and create a path for you.
Before we get to investing in our parents, if you want to save and you're from a place where you're really struggling, I want to think of exposure, where it's kind of, we are afraid of looking at our bank accounts, looking at our expenditures, looking at the money, or even talking about money.
Yeah, it's because it brings up this, it points to this point of, it always brings up this situation of like this past failure that we're trying to expose. So it becomes very difficult to look at your past and deduce information from it. And because when you're talking about money now, you always have to go back in what have we been doing, and such. So this is always going to be a very hurtful place to go back to. So you need to be very strong, and at the same time you actually really need to go there, because from there is when you get the truth, and from the truth is then where you're able to move forward. So it's one of those very difficult conversations that you need to have with yourself, because there's no way you're going to get wealthy by lying to yourself. And unless you go to those places, if you're moving forward anyway, it will not be as well grounded as it should be. So at the end of the day, you always move back. So it's, will you move back now when you're starting, or will you want for these things to become a wrong foundation, and then you start having to fix and put up pillars because the foundation was wrong and the building is now shaking?
Yeah, and let's talk of laziness when it comes to, I know I don't know much about money or investing, savings, whatnot, but it's kind of, I don't want to learn.
Again, this just goes back to what is your stimulus? Very few people in this world are actually lazy. It's just that the stimulus that they have is completely wrong. If you get a very artsy person and take them to a financial standpoint where they're now doing accounts and whatnot, they'll be the laziest people ever. But if you take that artsy person and put them on a directorial role or somewhere that it's really artsy, that person will even go without food, just because of how motivated they are to actually do what they actually like doing. So again, if you're lazy with your money and you're not saving it as you want to, you're not investing it as you want to, is because you've not yet found that motivation that you need to be able to do what you need to do.
So that brings a question of environment, where what we expose ourselves to, our friends, our society, our community. Because I guess even though it's reading, because I believe we explore as well while reading.
Yeah.
If you read, you get exposed to that. And I know when you're saying system 1, system 2, you're talking about the maybe conscious and the subconscious parts of us. And if you feed them subconscious with those thoughts, these people are living well off, and you keep feeding that, I think it will subconsciously push you to that place that you want to go.
You're told just look at the 5 people around you, and then you'll be the 6th, just like those people. So yeah, birds of the same feather flock together. So as you're saying, if you're around 5 very serious people, you're gonna be the 6th serious person, and then you're going to make sure you have a 7th, because they're just around you. So as you're saying, yeah, you need to put yourself around that environment where people are actually actively solving problems, people are actually thinking in a certain direction, people are questioning, because the biggest problem is that there's usually a status quo, and the status quo is pretty much just agreeing with what's there, and then there's usually really very little development on a status quo mindset. So you need to get to a point where there are people actually trying to question the status quo, and then from there on, you will become one of the questionnaires, and from it you now start making solutions out of the problem. Which also another thing is, don't always just ask the problems. Don't always just present the problems. What we need is people will actually create solutions.
That's true. And you can't question if you're not learning. You have to learn, then question.
Yeah.
I want us to come to this point of tracking down our expenses, because you see someone say that I received this salary, but I don't know where it just vanishes somehow.
Okay, again,
And I don't have any savings with me.
I will speak on it from my perspective and how I've seen, or I've looked at a few books, a few interviews of how this is now in personal wealth, and how actually a few people do it, and I found it really effective. So you need to arrest your emotion before it takes part of you. So now, as the percentage as you had talked through last time, so you need to understand what percentage do you want to save, and then don't even give yourself the chance to spend that money. As soon as that money hits your bank account, as soon as that money hits your M-Pesa, remove it from anywhere that you can be able to control it, and take it far away to a place that you can't touch it. Yeah. Example, if I'm receiving 10 Gs, I have told myself I will save 10%. As soon as I receive that 10 Gs, that 1,000, I put in a fixed deposit that maybe I can only touch every 3 months, or I put it in a bond, a share, because to sell those is kind of hard. Then after I've already saved and paid myself first, then I can start looking at what do I have to pay. Yeah. You even pay yourself before you pay other people's debts. If you have a loan, you pay yourself first before you pay that loan, because the hugest mistake is we are always paying other people loans. We're paying these small debts. We are paying rent. We are paying before you pay yourself. Pay yourself first. Then what you have left, make yourself survive on that. And with ingenuity, you always survive with anything that actually makes me feel like I cannot be able to survive on very little. Is sometimes I think about, I was looking like the German war. After they were defeated, they had very little, meager resources, and they still survived. So now why would I think I would not be able to survive even under these circumstances?
Right. And actually what I have taught my mind is my savings, it's not my money somehow. I don't even think about it. If I have no money in my account, I'm like, I don't have any money. My savings, it's just something so far gone. And you've touched a very important thing, because I had these colleagues who used to live in a place where like half of their salary is their rent. And I just don't get I don't understand how they live all that you can work half a month to just pay someone.
Live within your means. If you live within your means and you want to live above your means, so that's when you start getting that motivation of how then do I afford to live within my means at this quality of life. Then what that means is you need to earn more. Then brings that question on how can I earn more. Then you start doing those things that make you earn more. But then the percentage of your savings remains constant or increases. Let it not decrease.
That's a good one. And now let's come back to now your previous point of you want to save. I am in this conflict. I want to save because I want to make my life better. Then there is this question of, do I save to first improve myself? Then after that, I'll go back to my background and try to pull them. Or am I being selfish? But should I first, let's share this that I get with them, then we in such a straight curve, it's not even a curve, a line, that I'm just afraid I think if I save first, I'm being selfish. But again, I'm in this conflict of I don't know whether I shall improve in life if I don't save.
Let me give you a very different perspective.
Yeah.
There's this weird thing about being human, is that you're very conscious. And the aspect of being very conscious, you will find that most of the time people will actually love you more than you love yourself. So if you benchmark with yourself that let me fix myself up first and then fix everybody else, you're not bound to get very far, because you will treat the whole society as you treat yourself. You're even told if you want to improve, ask yourself, how would you help your friend? Then how you'd help your friend help yourself with that same information. So what mostly happens is, if you want to improve even money-wise, if your main goal is to improve your quality of life, you most likely will not go very far. You have to be very narcissistic for you to actually go very far, which most people are not. So what happens is, I'd advise first actually find a problem within maybe your family, your immediate society, and you want to solve that thing. Then you'll become really, really motivated, because we have this telepathic way of, you're even told you're the happiest when you're very sacrificial. So with that is where you end up having, with creating solutions for other people, you also get a piece of the benefit, which is also why you become really wealthy by creating system and solving problems, not yours, for everybody else.
Right. That's a good perspective, because I think from what I've seen, people say that for those who have flown, that you can't fix your neighbor's oxygen mask first. You have to fix your own, and that brings the conflict between should I save them or should I start with me, then go back?
But then you see what I'm bringing forward is, you might not fight to fix your oxygen mask as hard as if you actually put the other oxygen mask first in perspective. Then you have to fix yours so that you could go fix that one. So you'll actually have done more by viewing them first, because then you have to fix yours, then go fix theirs. If you want to fix only yours, you'll only fight as far as fixing yours, and you might not even make it, because again, you ask yourself, why do I have to fix mine? What's my life worth if I could let the other person die?
That's true. And you become satisfied, because I think you've met your needs.
And you might not even meet them that well.
Yeah.
It's a whole psychological conversation.
That's true. Now let's talk the importance of saving in relation to, I think people don't assume this, or it's a difficult conversation, especially for the youth, where we think, I got this job and I've just started a job, and you're like, I see myself, you picture yourself in this workspace for a long time, and then maybe something happens and you're retrenched.
Yeah. Especially this COVID time has actually put that in really in huge perspective.
True.
You have to have a buffer. Even in business, if you're running a company, you have to have a certain percentage that you can't go below in terms of liquidity. You have a kitty to the side where only you know your expenses per month. So you'd most likely say, I'd want to always have a kitty where I can cater for maybe a good amount to be like 6 months of my current expenses. That's always set aside if anything ever does happen. I was looking at Bill Gates when he started a company when he was 17. And he was saying that he was so afraid that every time he always put in a year in advance for salaries for everybody in a different kitty. He always had more than a year's salary, so that even if they wouldn't sell or make any money, he'd be able to pay them for a year. Now, the more confident, the more amount of revenue that you get and savings, then you get lower and lower and lower. But as you're starting, I think 6 months would be good.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's a good question to ask yourself if I get retrenched or fired today, or if something just happens, our company closes, would I leave at least some months of what I have right now?
This also brings the aspect of you need things like insurance. You need because we do in this current life that we're living, we don't know, health hazards are always there. What happens if you actually got into an accident and you broke your arms, and you're mostly an office guy and you use your hands most of the time? So do you have insurance for health? Actually, like in Kenya right now, most of the people who actually move back to poverty is because one of the family members got a health problem. So again, which usually brings this perspective, which also will maybe give you another different perspective. I thought of it like this. Most people trying to start businesses with their friends and other people.
Right.
Yet, the truth of the matter is, if you got sick today and you're bedridden and your expenses are really high, there is no one of those friends or those other people you started a business with who will go as far as to sell everything they have in this life to get into full poverty that they're living outside, more than your family to pay for your hospital bills.
That's true.
So why would you cooperate with other people first before you cooperate with your family?
Right. And you've raised a good point of insurance, thinking of things like insurance, because I think we think because right now I am healthy and all that it's somehow a part of saving and a part of a plan, of a future plan that we rarely think of.
I was looking at a funny comedy show of I don't know if you know him. He's called Trevor Noah.
Yeah.
He was explaining that he had been paying insurance for his mother, and then his mom stopped paying insurance because she never got sick. And she was explaining how in their family they're always healthy and whatnot. And then she got shot.
Yeah.
It was funny. Anyway, but the thing is, you never see it coming. So you kind of need to protect, because you'd insure your business. So why would you not insure yourself?
Yeah.
And you're the hugest asset.
That's true. And now the last question, monitoring our goals. Should we do monthly, quarterly, half yearly?
So this is now going to be relative with the actual thing that you're trying to achieve. So you want to go as far as to now this is also on a person's perspective, because there are those people who are really, really hard with plans. You don't work best with plans. You work best with like a general structure, and then from it you make your way through it, or you innovate and you wing it, you improvise. So now that matters with you. There are those people who really, really like structure. So if you're able to go down as to the hour, that's really good.
Yeah.
But I think weekly is where you'd cap it, where you say, I have this 4 big things I want to do by the end of the week, or this number of things, and don't have very many, because when you have very many, then you're always pushing them forward. Then when you're always pushing them forward,
they become overwhelming.
Yes, so you stop at the end of it. You stop doing it.
Yeah.
If it's financially, if you have a job, then you want to do it monthly, because if you're being paid monthly, then you want this amount to always hit your savings and your investments per month. If you have wages and you're paid daily, that's even better. Do it daily.
Yeah.
If your salary is weekly, do that, and so on and so forth. Then if you do it, maybe you're paid monthly as most people, and you're doing it monthly, then set some goals here at the middle, where maybe you're saying you'll reduce your expenses every week by this, or you want to have extra income up and above your employment every week by this. What can I do? And such and such.
That's true. And One last thing, pension. Have you ever thought of pension?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Is it like too early for someone who has just had gotten into the job market? You're 20 something, 21 or something, and you're thinking pension. It's too long. Before I get there, I'll be a billionaire or something.
So I want to bring in something very radical, where if you're in your older years, that's when, if right now you're listening to this and you're really slightly aged, then pension becomes a really, really good option for you. It also matters with the kind of laws that you have in your country. Like right now, Kenya, if you're saving for pension, you're not taxed for that amount. They almost recently changed it, but I saw it was still upheld. So if you're making a lot of money and you're trying to reduce on your taxes, then pension is a good thing. You actually put a lot of money to pension, because then, yeah. But if you're not making a lot of money, then, and you have this long time before you retire, pension is not that good, because pension was really pushed forward a long time ago, because it was the pension where you're given this fixed amount of money that you'll be paid at the end.
Yeah.
But nowadays, the pension is according to, you give it to the pension managers and then they invest it for you. Then what they invest for you at this particular rate, that's the pension you get when you leave. Now, so what you've done is you've given control to someone else
Yeah.
for your retirement.
Right.
That's the last thing you want to do. If you have a pension, let it not be your plan A, let it be your plan B. You always want your businesses or your investment to be plan A.
Right.
Then plan B, as you were saying, is when you're trying to reduce your taxes, or just what if by some chance your business fails during your retirement years, then you have a pension.
Yeah.
But it's good.
Yeah.
However, we as the youth should not be really taking pension as the main thing. It should be as a plan B.
That's true. Any conclusion?
This I have learned from my parents, because we're talking about investment. Do not invest in something that you do not have a control or a stake in. Do not invest in something where unless the risk is really, really low.
Mm-hmm.
Do not invest in something where people sit in a board and make a decision and then you get the information after. Because then you do not control your fate, and there's nothing as pathetic as not controlling your fate, because then other people will make decisions that will help them.
Yeah.
And you're the one who will face the losses.
That's a good one. And to conclude, I just say that you have to see it, desire it, then start living it. That's it for Youth Split today. Till next week. Bye.